Zenless Zone Zero for Dummies. Zenless Zone Zero is an urban fantasy action RPG, putting you up against all kinds of enemies ranging from cool-looking corrupted ethereals, all the way to AI-powered crane machines, and ultimately gigantic bosses which I have a hard time justifying myself for. That being said, the game offers you a variety of extraordinary agents at your disposal, each assigned with different roles and elements. This will be a guide focusing on the most general combat mechanics, opting for an easy plug-and-play experience. Not an in-depth how to become the very best like no one ever was, you know? Like, anyway. Generally, you will set up teams consisting of 3 agents. Let's take a look at the most basic form of a team first. This one consists of an attacker designed to deal the most damage, further known as DPS, and a stunner aiming to create openings against enemies and to widen the attacker's options. And lastly, a support agent usually excelling in providing buffs and or debuffs and being able to group up enemies for maximum efficiency. Each enemy, with only a few exceptions, will have 2 bars, HP and Daze. Technically there's a third, but we'll get into that later. The Daze bar reflects ZZZ's core mechanic. Fill it up and the enemy will be unable to move for quite some time and receive more damage, for the duration making it easier to empty their HP. An extra reward for stunning an enemy will be the proccing of the chain attack, incentivizing you to swap your team while also dishing out strong attacks. The game categorizes enemies in either one of 3 types, let's just call them small fries, medium size, and bosses. Typically, the game throws these enemies at you in waves. Earlier waves, more often than not, consists mostly of small guys, which can easily be taken care of by your DPS. Supporters can even quicken the process to enter the next wave sooner by, grouping them together or just by applying buffs. Once the next wave hits, that's when medium or even bigger bosses start showing up. For those, I like to make use of the stunner, who is usually the fastest at filling up the Daze bar. The more actions you perform in battle, the more decibels your team will have. Once maxed at 3000, you may ult with your currently active character. Most people suggest to save it up until the enemy is stunned for maximum damage output. I personally dislike waiting on my ult, and just use it on my stunner if the enemy ain't stunned. But if they are already about to be stunned, then obviously I'll use my DPS's ult. In rare occasions against bigger waves of enemies, I even ult with my supporter. Check out my character-specific guides to see what kind of rotations I personally prefer. Defensively, you usually have 2 options. Simply press the dodge button when an enemy attacks. With the correct timing, it will be a perfect dodge, slowing down time and making you invulnerable on top, even while countering. If the attack lights up yellowish, you may also swap to another character exactly when the attack lights up to parry. Note, some characters cannot parry at all and will simply dodge. The hardest stages will force you to plan ahead when parrying, since you only have up to 6 parries ready, and those only fill up again by performing chain attacks. This roughly sums up the general combat experience of Zenless Zone Zero. Only thing I want to add on are the 2 remaining roles we didn't cover yet. I like to translate Anomaly characters as a mix of attacker and stunner, while the defender feels more like a mix of stunner and support. When dealing elemental damage, the enemy will accumulate Anomaly. Once full, the according element will trigger a specific effect. For instance, Ice Anomaly will obviously freeze the enemy, while Ether Anomaly corrupts them, rendering them unable to move for a bit. Each trigger of Anomaly also deals a lot of damage depending on the character's Anomaly proficiency and other stats. And if you trigger 2 different anomalies in a row, you will cause the disorder effect, which basically just means even more damage. Not only that, but triggering Anomaly will also fill up the enemy's daze by quite a bit on top. Hence there will be different team styles viable that either replace the usual attacker with an Anomaly character, or maybe even 2 Anomaly characters together. Feel free to try things out for yourself. Lastly, the Defender. As of right now in version 1.1, there's only 1 Defender available and a 2nd and 3rd are around the corner. However, we can already deduct that the role of defenders is to tank damage for the team if need be. They may even provide buffs like shields and also counter enemy attacks like a truck, which can even fill up daze bars reliably. Best thing is, they'll allow you to defend against enemy attacks even when your parry bar might be empty by blocking or by simply tanking through. All in all, when fighting in ZZZ, focus on filling up the enemy daze bars to have the easiest time to deal proper damage to win against waves of enemies that the game throws at you. Or defeat them by dealing elemental damage consistently via anomalies. Make sure to swap regularly according to the situation for maximum efficiency, especially with chain attacks. This is what I recommend against the following enemies: DPS and support against the small guys, stunners and DPS against medium guys, and all three together against actual bosses. You can detect bosses by looking on the top right of the screen. If there's a health bar, that means there's a boss on the screen. So make sure you find your own style of gameplay. There's also an emphasis to take a closer look at enemy resistances and weaknesses to make it easier for you to decide what team comp to use. That will be all. If you like this type of simplified explanations, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. There will be more of these, for instance for specific characters and other mechanics like the drive discs. So yeah, for the best experience, I suggest you follow me on Twitch and maybe catch me live. Till then, see ya!